So I have Sam Grewe here. He's a Paralympic athlete about to head to Tokyo. You've been involved in high jump for a while, and I'm just kind of curious how you got originally involved in it and what kind of sparked your interest from the beginning.
Yeah, so I started doing track and field in 2014, about 2 years after losing my leg to cancer. And in those 2 years, I had gotten back into sports, was doing basketball for my high school team, as well as lacrosse and football. Um, and, really loved being back out on the field on the court with my friends because I had missed that for so long when I was going through cancer treatment, but didn't really find my groove in sports yet, and kind of stumbled into the world of adaptive sports. And the first point of entry for me into adaptive sports was track and field. And so I went to a local adaptive sports competition that Glassa was putting on, and decided, sure, let's just do all 8 events that were offered to me because I didn't know what I was going to do. High jump ended up being the very last event that I did, and honestly just kind of fell in love with it right off the bat. I really liked just how beautiful the event is. Another just like objective draw to it was that in high jump, you only jump off of one leg. And as a guy who now only had one leg, that was pretty cool to me. It seemed like I could really kind of replicate the mechanics in the same way as if I had 2 legs. And so, that was enough for me to at least be interested in high jump. And it wasn't until, the following year when I made my first international team that I actually decided, let's take high jump seriously. Before that, it was just kind of something for fun.
How was that rise to the top? I mean, you're a top level high jumper now, and can you kind of describe that? Like, I know you went to the Rio Games a few years ago, and kind of what that experience was like, and leading up to your competition and training to that, and so.
Yeah. So, like I said, discovered adaptive sports in 2014, high jump specifically, and didn't really start training it until the following summer in 2015. And that's when I qualified for US trials, which is where I qualified for my first world championships team. And so at that point, I really ramped up what I was doing high jump wise, got a coach, started training it exclusively, and actually won a gold medal at world championships in 2015, which came as a huge shock to me and everyone else because I was seated, I think, in last place as the youngest competitor. But I had jumped a 20 centimeter PR. And so at that point, I think, was kind of where my high jumping career really took off because I knew that I had what it takes to be competitive in this world of high jump. I knew that, Rio was coming up in the next year. And so, it was full steam ahead as far as preparing for Rio. So trained year round at that point and have been training year round ever since. That all happened within a year of first picking up high jump. So it all happened extremely quickly. And so I was, new to the national team, new to competing internationally. So there was a lot to learn, the different pressures that come with it, as well as just balancing, training with your schedule. But now that I am 7 years in and, I've been on the national, been on the national team for 7 years competing, it's almost second nature now. I don't really remember what it was like to not be, a Paralympic athlete because it's such a huge part of, who I am and what I do.
This pandemic, has it been tough to like train, with all these different circumstances and having the Paralympics postponed? Has that been a difficult on you personally, trying to overcome?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like everybody else, COVID set so many different obstacles to overcome with training, especially in the beginning. I competed on Notre Dame's track and field team. And so I was going to be training with them and competing during my senior year, regardless of whether or not the games were postponed. And so it's not like my training schedule was that different, but in the last spring and through the summer when I wasn't at Notre Dame, it was almost impossible to find ways to train at home. I didn't have a big enough open area to do any sort of high jump training necessarily. I was more or less just general fitness. and there was always ways that I could find to stay in shape. The biggest thing was just mentally trying to remain focused because, with the postponement of the games and with everything else that was going on in the world during COVID, it just seemed it was just impossible to actually get myself to go out there and to do the workouts that I had to do because it seemed so minuscule compared to what everything else was going on. So yeah, I mean, there was just a ton of challenges to overcome with that. And, thankfully, like I said, once I returned to campus at Notre Dame, training was very smooth. They were very accommodating, kept all the athletes safe while also providing facilities to us. So, it got sorted out, but at first it was really challenging.
Yeah. That's good. You found a solution to overcome it. And it's been obviously a tough hardship on all of us, but for athletes, it's different to see how they can overcome. But okay. And I guess now I'm just curious your story about how you found out about the University of Michigan Adaptive Sports and Fitness program and how you got connected and eventually, became part of the program.
Yeah. So I met Dr. O in 2017 at the opening of a new children's hospital that him and I were both involved with. He was completing his residency there. And I was involved as a former patient who kind of helped influence certain decisions that went into, what we're going into the pediatric rooms and stuff like that. And so we met there and kind of realized how, we just had a lot of mutually shared interests, especially in adaptive sports. And so we got each other's information and kept in touch for a while. Ran into each other a few times at different competitions and just, it's kind of a small circle in the adaptive sports world. Well, I think my junior year of college, I reached out to him just because I was pre-med. I knew, all his involvement with, medical school, adaptive sports at Michigan. And I said, hey, I want to be involved with that. I want to make it happen. What can we do? And so from then on, Dr. O, I mean, he's always been a mentor of mine, but especially, since my college years, has really been influential in getting me involved in adaptive sports, especially with, my internship at M Disability doing adaptive sports type research and program implementation. And so I've known about the program for some time, but now to be here and to be a part of the team is just so cool because, until I moved to Ann Arbor, all of my involvement with the team and with the program was done virtually. And so, I mean, meeting you in person and meeting everybody else that I had heard of or met virtually was just so cool to actually be a part of the team.
Yeah, that's a great story. I'm gonna have some parallels to that. Kind of Dr. O encouraging me to get involved out here. So he's got quite the wide network.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, he knows a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, so I guess kind of just final question. Like, what's your sentiment, your goals for this Paralympics in Tokyo, and what are you looking forward to? What are you kind of preparing yourself for exactly? Obviously you're training up to it and just kind of what's your overall kind of sentiment?
Yeah, I mean, going into Tokyo, there's so many things that I'm excited about. Seeing my teammates that I haven't really been with or spent any time with since 2019 World Championships. Being in a different country, I haven't done that since before the pandemic, and also just having the opportunity to go out and compete on a really big scale again. I haven't really had that opportunity since before COVID as well. And so it's going to be a lot of things that I've missed. As far as competing goes, obviously the gold medal is the goal. I won the world championship title in 2019 and set a world record. And so I think I have a lot of really good momentum going into the games. But, that being said, the past year and a half has just been an absolutely crazy year for me and so many other people. And so I think it's going to be so hard to predict, what the competition is going to look like there. And so I'm just hoping to jump, to the best of my ability, and whether or not that wins the gold or not is out of my control. You can't play defense in high jump. And so more or less I'm just looking for a really good competition, looking to, leave it all out there just because, this is what we've been training for 5 years now. One of the things I guess I'm not looking forward to about Tokyo is just the fact that so much of the Paralympic experience it's just gone because of COVID protocols, which is definitely the right move. But when I was in Rio, it was so much bigger than a competition. You were interacting with all the different countries. You were sitting down at the dining hall and having meals with them and learning about them and their culture and how they train at home. You were seeing the city, you're experiencing the culture of the place you were in. And it's just not going to be feasible for us athletes to do that this time because of, we're basically just going to be in a bubble in Tokyo. not so much in Tokyo. And so, you know, I get it. I'm super thrilled that games are going forward, but just get to find ways to have fun and enjoy the experience, while also being a med student there.
Yeah, I mean, you're wearing a lot of different hats, and we're very excited for you to compete, and we'll be cheering from a distance, and happy that you've joined the program here,
Me
and
as well.
yeah, wish you the best.